What's up, everybody? So you want to use your AMD GPU for Stable Diffusion Web UI. You're in the right place. I'm going to show you how it works. It'd be a pity that you sit through the whole tutorial and then in the end, you're like, hey, this doesn't even work. I'll show you. It takes a little while to get started. And then you have something like this. Let's generate Stable Diffusion with AMD GPU. Let's see. It's quite crappy, to be honest. But it works. Maybe it works a little bit better if you're putting like dragon with woman on it wearing green. All right, so again, not great. One, I guess, has a dragon, but you know, fire breathing dragon. This is a little bit better, I think. These are, serviceable. So you want to do this, and this is how we get it done. On Windows, what you have to do is install Python 3.10.6 because the newer version does not support storage, which we need. Then you go here and you download here what you need, which typically is going to be the recommended one, which is this. And then in the installation, you want to check the box for add Python to path. You do the same with Git. So you go to Git, download typically the 64-bit Git for Windows setup. You go through next. If there's an option for add to path, you click on it. And then once you have these two done, what you do next is you're gonna open up an Explorer. You're gonna go to the folder where you want to install it. For me, I already have one here. I created a tutorial folder, and then you're gonna write here CMD. You're gonna hit enter, and you're gonna be inside of here. And in order to check that Git and Python installed correctly, you're gonna just write Git and click enter. And you're gonna have a help message like this where it explains all the different parameters and everything. So if this shows up, it's correctly installed. If you write Python and you get something like this, it's correctly installed and it tells you the version. If you have multiple versions, you might have to haggle with those or uninstall a prior one and install this one. There's many different options of doing this with virtual environments as well, but it's beyond the scope of this. And in order to get out of this, you press Control Set and hit enter. And now you're back. If either Git or Python don't show up in your command line, then you have to solve that. And I think one way to solve that is just to search. For example, if Python is failing, you hit Python add to path. And then you're going to get many articles, Stack Overflow questions and such that will explain perfectly what you need to do to get this working again. I think it's beyond the scope of this. If a comment with 1,000 likes on it, I'll actually record a video and explain and go through it step by step how to fix this. But anyway, so let's assume that you went through the Python installation, you took this, you installed it, next. Check all the boxes that said add to path, same for Git. You checked it on the command line. It shows up like it shows up here. And then next, what you need to do is clone, not this one, sorry. You need to clone the repository. And typically when people try to do Stable Diffusion Web UI, they use this automatic 1111. But if you do that with an AMD GPU, that's not really gonna work. You're gonna get this error. I'll show it here just for the sake of clarity. You're gonna get this runtime error. It's gonna say that Torch is not able to use GPU, meaning I've detected you don't have NVIDIA, which is what we support, and add this -- skip torch CUDA test to command line arguments. Okay. Maybe first, just to explain, if you do this, if we were to do this, Stable Diffusion would only use your CPU, which is like a central processing unit. It's think of it as the brain of the computer. It's typically Intel or AMD. That's what you have. If you don't know what you have, you can pull up, if you hit on the start menu, and you can write device manager, and then you're gonna get something like this. So for example, in display adapters, you will see the graphics card that you have. In my case, it's a 7800 XT, and this is the one that is included in the processor, because some CPUs have an integrated graphics card in it, but it's not very potent. So I don't think, if it works, it would work very slowly with this, and I don't even think it's supported. But prove me wrong in the comments. And if you scroll down and you go to processors, you double click, this is the one I have. It's an Intel. But anyway, so if you were to add this option, you would use your CPU. You don't want that. It's going to be way slower than using your GPU. And you might ask yourself, hey, but let's say hypothetically I wanted to do that. Where do I add this command line arguments? That would be a good question. And I'll just hold that thought, and I'll explain it in a second. So we're back to, let's close this. We're back to a folder where I want to have all the files. If you have NVIDIA, you copy this. If you have AMD, you're really gonna use a fork, so a modification of this. If you look here, this unpronounceable username, and it has a stable diffusion web UI using DirectML, direct machine learning, I believe. And it's forked, meaning that it's a modification of this automatic 1111. So how do we copy this? Well, we're gonna take here code, and you're gonna copy this GitHub link. And then in the file that you wanted, just click here, write CMD, and then you're gonna get one of these. And in one of these, what you write is git clone, and then you copy that link. You hit enter, it's gonna do its thing. It's gonna copy all the files that you need to use, and now you have this folder, right? So we've effectively just copied what's on GitHub. And now if you enter here and scroll down, there's gonna be a webui-user.bat, and then you're gonna edit this with Notepad, for example. So you're gonna get something like this. And remember these command line arguments, that's what we saw before. Let me just, it said add skip torch CUDA test to command line arguments. So if you wanted to do that, we don't want to do that, but if you did, you would add here this save and then run this file by double clicking it. With an AMD GPU, the arguments that have worked for me really well are the following: use-directml, optional, subquad attention, no half, disable-nan-check, and autolaunch. Autolaunch basically means that when you run you double click this file, which is a script file, then it will open a new tab with the web UI interface. The other ones are stuff that I found online, because some of these, without it, it wouldn't work. For example, doing image to image type of stuff. So feel free to modify this, try others, but this is the one that I found worked for me. So now you're gonna go to the folder, you're gonna double click this bat file. The first time you run it, it's gonna take quite a while because it's installing all sorts of things. All right, so welcome to Stable Diffusion. I'll paste the prompt of what I wanted to display and hit generate. So this works as far from perfect. This is with the default model that it downloads the first time you run it, but you can change that. There are many different models. If you go to civitai.com/models, you have all of these that you can use. They're quite heavy, so prepare to fill up your hard drive. And just to give you an example of what that looks like, if you go to the folder that we copied, so it was inside tutorial and then stable diffusion webui-user.bat, there's like a models folder, and then inside of stable diffusion, this is the one that got downloaded by default. I'm gonna paste here one that I have already tested, realistic vision. So you download these from the internet and then you paste them in this folder, which is like /models/stable diffusion. And now we're gonna try what that looks like once we run it. So the same prompt with a different model. So we're here, you have to refresh first, and now you have more. So I don't change the prompt, but I changed the model, and then I generate again, and I assume that the result will be quite different. So here we clearly see already that one of them is focused on anime, so you're gonna get anime titties apparently, and a bunch of wolves, and this is like a cat girl, it seems. But let's wait until it loads up. And this is actually way better in my opinion compared to the other one. So way better quality, at least top left, bottom right, bottom left. This is a little bit chunky, the faces, but nonetheless, relatively good quality. And these are in 512 pixels times 512. But you could upscale them quite easily. Maybe I can show that in another video, but it's basically you can turn this in extras, and then you can scale it up with an upscaler. So, and you can send it, I think, send it here. Let's take this and then upscale it by, let's go upscaler, let's use this one, and resize it by 4, and let's see what comes out. So again, this is way better quality compared to this. I don't know if the compression on the video will show, but this, just by looking at it, much lower resolution compared to this one, which is like way more defined. So let's try with realistic vision. Let's see what pops out. Again, same prompt, and let's see what happens. And in case you're curious, the iterations is going, you know, anywhere between 3 and 4, something like that. Which probably, you know, not as fast as maybe some NVIDIA cards, but for my purposes of just fiddling with it, it's quite okay. Now you see this much better than the original one that we did. So this, except for this one, maybe the nose is a little bit messed up, but this starts to look like something. Okay, and the eye is a little bit different. And there's even ways you can do image to image. So you can feed this to stable diffusion, mark the eye, and then it will generate you just different eyes. You would put in the prompt brown eye, and then it would change that. Again, whatever most about a comment, I can do a video on that, on how to change eyes or how to change clothing and stuff like that when you have an outfit in a picture and make it look good. All right, I think that's pretty much it. Just to recap what we talked about. So when you're starting from scratch, what do you need? Python 3.10.6. Go here, install the recommended version, most likely 64-bit. Check the box of add to path. Do the same with Git. Then you go to, I'll add all these links below. The LS, whatever this guy is there. I don't know, this guy, this fork from the automatic 1111. And then you're gonna click here. You're gonna copy the link. You go to the command line, git space clone space, paste this URL when you're in the folder that you wanna get it with. In order to get a command line, let's say we're here and it's empty, or even if it has other stuff, you just write there cmd, hit enter, then do the stuff with a git clone. If you get an error, it means that git is not in your path. Just search for git add to path or Python add to path, whichever is failing. If both, then with both. And then that's it. Then you have to go into the folder where you got that. So tutorial / this thing, you enter. And before you run anything, you open this bat file. For example, Notepad++, and you copy these arguments again. I'll paste them in the description below. Then you run this. You wait some time because it's gonna download a model first, and then you're gonna get something like this. You're gonna write a prompt in text to image, and you're gonna get a crappy output, which is what you get with this pruned EMMA only safe tensors. So that's why you go to the folder. Inside here, you go to models, inside of stable diffusion, and you paste new models. Where do you get these models? civitai.com/models. I'm sure there's many other websites, but this is the one that I've been using. And it has checkpoints that you can download. You can put them over here. Once you're there, you're like, hey, wait a second. I clicked it down and they're not here. Well, you have to refresh first. If you would run it again, then he would get them from the start. But now here you have to reload and then click here, and in the drop down you would have all these options. And as you can see, the models have advanced leaps and bounds, and now it's really cool. It's kind of creepy, but it's way better than the DALL-E days. So yeah. And another option that I won't cover here is image to image. So you can technically, what you can do is you can go here. I just send it to the image to image, and I could select the eye with a mask and then say brown eye, and then I would kind of like try to get something that is a modicum better than this, because this just looks weird. I could even select both eyes if I don't like them and change them for something that looks a little bit better. And but yeah, comment down below if you liked it or not. What would you change? Again, not ideal situation to have an AMD GPU, but if you do, this is a way to get around it. I think if you want to do, you know, hardcore production type of stuff, then probably you have to bite the bullet and pay a ton. Like donate a liver and sell it so you can buy a 4090. But for the rest of us mere mortals, this is a good starting point to just, you know, get familiarized with the technology, see how it works, and see what it does. And I'm quite satisfied. You can also change the sampling method here, and you'll get different results. Each one of these algorithms works best with the determined amount of sampling steps. I'm not going to cover that here, but just so you know. And again, just generate smaller images, and then you can upscale them. And the batch count is the one that regulates how many pictures you get. Because let's say you put one and then you get a crappy one, it's better, I think, to just batch, get a bunch of them. So the seed is what it uses to get the same parameters that I use here internally. So if you were to save the seed, and I think the images, once you load them, they have the seed loaded in it. So for example, here you can see it already. It's a different seed for every picture. So you have here, ends in 5, ends in 6, ends in 7. So technically, I think if you would take it to a different computer with this seed, but you're using the same model, you should get similar type of like output. Or if you want to get, for example, now the same seed, but a batch count of 10 or 20 or something, you would get more of the similar type of thing that I use internally. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and fire down below if you have problems or there's something you haven't solved, or hey, you have better parameters for the bat file, then please share. And that's it. Take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.